This podcast is sponsored by Tusk, a continuity of business solution for industries that struggle with traditional banking. Check them out on the web at tusk.network. The Rob McNealy program is the nexus of cryptocurrency, blockchain technology, and entrepreneurship. Now, welcome to the program. Today, we're talking to Barry Ritchey, and he is an expert in digital marketing. He's got a long history both on the social marketing side as well as the normal standard digital marketing side. But what I like about what's interesting about Barry and what I wanted to talk to him today is he tends to focus on sinful things. So Barry, welcome to the show. How are you today?
Great. How are you, Rob? Good to be here.
Good. Well, all things being equal, life is really good. And I like full disclosure. You and I have actually known each other for, got to be at least a decade now. It's been really kind of cool watching your career grow back when I first met you, man. That would have been in Denver in like 2008, probably that time frame. So more than a decade ago.
Yeah, that's a long time.
And you were writing then. I think you were really heavy into blogging and doing the social media thing. And that's where we kind of met. I think we met through some of the social media meetups back when social media was a thing, right? So for the audience we have a lot of people that are both entrepreneurs in this audience and a lot of people that are into the crypto sphere. So give us a little bit of background about what you do and how you kind of got involved into the crypto world.
Well, background, I come from an agency background. So I was operations. At one point, they called me a vice president of operations for boutique agencies that were built within newspaper publishers. So Digital First Media, Tribune Publishing. These guys, they have a audience extension agency. In addition to selling ads in their newspaper, they have people running their digital ads. So I was tasked with starting up those operations divisions, and training all those people and all the kind of, digital marketing principles, campaign management, optimization, and obviously, guideline navigation. How I got into crypto, that's interesting. So I was waving a sign for Ron Paul, probably around 2008, around that time, on the street corner in Denver, Colorado, on the 16th Street Mall. And dude just offered me a half a Bitcoin. He was like, "Do you want a half a Bitcoin?" At that point, I didn't know what that was, never heard of it. I said, "Sure, yeah, I'm gonna do it," and kind of got into basically the way to use it and how to get involved. I had another a friend of mine. He taught me kind of a lot of the ins and outs of the technical aspects of where to keep it, how to keep it, and then I got it all set up, and then I lost track of it. I let it go for about 10 years. Lost the USB drive, couldn't access my wallet. Went through a couple moves, and finally, as I moved to Las Vegas, as I unpacked, I found this USB drive. And having watched the price of Bitcoin, move, it was interesting, kind of pulling that out, and it's pretty sweet. So yeah, I definitely follow the community. I like a lot of the kind of activist aspects, and totally into it, and see it as a viable alternative in the future.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see how the activist aspects of cryptos, if it can actually maintain itself going forward now with things like Libra and some of the other Walmart's talking about a coin now and all this. So it'll be interesting to see if the essence of what created and drove this whole notion of decentralization in finance actually works. Being in the space, I'm excited to see where this goes. So, you focus a lot on marketing, helping people and companies, actually do marketing, but specifically, where do you kind of specialize? My agency is called ViceGeek, and I specialize in what I've come to call alternative product placement. Products that are typically harder to advertise, that there's normally guidelines around that would, include weapons, guns, knives, erotic services, all these, places that want to sell, whatever, vibrators and all that kind of stuff, helping them kind of let people know that they're in business. I think, I've always kind of working in the mainstream agency space. We turned down a lot of business that was viable business. They were operating in their communities. They, were following all the rules and guidelines to operate in Denver at the time. And or Las Vegas, and I was there, and I just feel it's a right to let people know that you're in business, and that's the essence of what advertising is just
letting your community know that you're in business and that you have a product that they should check out. And, and so, yeah, definitely focused in that kind of niche of alternative product placement. And that definitely includes cryptocurrencies. The guidelines from, the big boys, Google, Facebook, Amazon, these guys, they're very restrictive and they're very, hard to navigate. And throughout my experience, I've learned how to navigate those. I have support contacts with each of those organizations and are able to streamline, really, for businesses, the ability to let people know they're out there, that they exist.
And so I want to clarify, we're talking about legal products, right? We're not talking about
certainly.
Or, you're not doing drug trafficking and arms, smuggling through Google AdWords.
No, legal products. I mean, we always follow all of the guidelines and the rules. And however, that's a murky subject, right? So starting out in Colorado, marijuana was not a legal product, and it became a legal product. So when we run marijuana ads or dispensary ads, we're always isolated to the state in question. And we're always layering 21 plus data on top of that to ensure that, we're hitting people that are 21 and older and in the state where it's legal. So that's just pretty basic guideline, but that's some of the things that we kind of help businesses navigate.
So what have you found in your experience with a lot of, companies that are in these kind of alternative spaces? What are the struggles they're actually having with, getting ads and being able to advertise their businesses? What are you seeing as their main struggles and pain points?
Yeah, it's always scale, right? So if somebody has a building, they're going to get an amount of foot traffic that's going to happen oftentimes organically, obviously depending on where they're at, how much, and what the scale of that is. But most of the time I'm talking to businesses that have 100, 200, customers, and they want to scale that to 1,000, to tens of thousands, right? To be able to ship their products over the internet to people wherever they may be that want that service. So I think their biggest challenge is oftentimes they think, people think advertising is easy. I put up a Facebook post and people like that, and that means that I advertise to people. That's not what we do. We specialize in paid media. It's targeted placements to people who show high intent for a certain product or service, and are also kind of targeted contextually, meaning what site are they looking at, what page, what kind of content is that page that they're looking at on the internet, what kind of person is watching that and looking at that, and then we target that data. So I think their biggest challenge is they just don't know that their product is prohibitive. Most of the time somebody comes to me because they've had their account shut down. And they're like, well, we thought we were doing everything right, but our account got shut down. Can you help us, get our account back active and start to advertise and gain market share again? That's the biggest challenge. These guys, Google, Facebook, all the ad exchanges, they go through a very complex process, and then they review that, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days down the line. As they're reviewing that ad, does it comply with all our rules and regulations? A different human looks at that, and oftentimes these are offshore people doing it. A different human looks at that 30 days later and they say, oh wait, well I recognize whatever keyword it is. There's the word cannabis. Let's shut this down. And then if you try to circumvent those policies and try to, instead of confronting it head on, oftentimes companies try to circumvent it, and when they circumvent it, they slap them with that, they just ban your account. You've tried to circumvent our policies. We don't want you as part of our ad network anymore. So that typically is kind of how the conversation starts with a lot of the companies I work with. I wish it wasn't the case. I wish they knew about me and about these services before they went through that. It's really hard to get an account reinstated after it's been deactivated, but there are certainly ways to navigate that, and we help them with that.
Well, that's really good, because I've heard this from more than one company that have actually had their accounts, shut down and deactivated for that. And one of them went out of business because they were doing everything on Google. So there is there are people like you in the world that maybe actually could have helped them.
Yeah, certainly. And I think a lot of times people are, in my industry, there's a lot of money in the mainstream space. So they don't really, I can just go talk to a car dealership and I can get a certain amount of budget and run their ads. But it's more fulfilling when I'm helping out people who are having a tough time, who are probably staying up at night thinking about, how do I get my product out there? I know it's a good product. I know people want it. How do I, profit off that? And, there is a certain amount of pride that I take in helping those people out, for sure.
So you do pay-per-click. Do you do any kind of more traditional kind of ad placements that also may cater to these different alternative industries and with products that might be considered sinful?
Oh yeah. Every product is different. So every product mix that we put together, budget plays a lot into it. How much money are you willing to spend every month? But outside of that, all money considered, I think typically we're looking at very creative product mixes. There's Google and Facebook, even though they have a massive market share of the digital advertising, still only at highest estimates about 50%. There's still another 50% of the internet that you can access, their ad space. There's what we've spent a lot of time doing is setting up direct deals, meaning especially with marijuana products, we know that they're heavily age verified in the states that it's legal. And at this point, legal in California, Washington, Colorado, Michigan, Florida. The list is growing every year. So that pool of users that we have access to is also growing every year. And what we do is we set up private deals with these content providers. So somebody that's a dispensary, they're part of an exchange network. We help them sell that inventory. So I have, they may have 10,000 people coming to my website. I'm going to help them sell that inventory and monetize that content that they're putting out there.
But that might
then what we do is,
sorry, I was going to say that might actually be better because you now have, a really easily convertible audience at that point, because these people are already interested in that type of content to begin with. So that's actually better than some shotgun approaches that people do with pay-per-click out there.
Precisely. That's why we do it. I mean, the scale on that's limited. I'll be honest. I mean, I can only have so many conversations with content providers in a day and gaining access to that inventory. And there are some big deals that you can put together that add scale. And I think specific industries, I would say the gun and ammo and weapon industry and marijuana we've certainly focused on. They're just kind of I'd say the biggest from a critical mass standpoint, and also ones I feel very passionate about in those businesses being successful. And so definitely, certainly taking that audience, packaging it in a way that it can be used by an advertiser of, say, a gun shop, that they have an open house or they want to give away a gun lock or whatever, for people to come into the store and get them a part of their network. They become a follower of their Instagram account, and then you're not paying for an ad to get to that person anymore. That's the whole idea of what we do is we target that person. It becomes a part of basically your community. And then you're able to communicate with them about your product and innovations and everything that's involved in that.
Well, that's one of the things that I've tried to talk to people or explain to people is that the gun industry, which is of all the alternative industries and products out there, the gun industry is the only one that's actually constitutionally protected. And in all states, even cannabis is, technically still federally legal, but, guns aren't. Guns are completely legal, lawful, traditional, historical. They're part of American culture. Yet gun retailers, lawful gun retailer. We're not talking some guy in an alley in the street in Chicago. We're talking about, people with, business licenses and insurance and, federal background checks that sell lawful products to people, are still treated like third world, this like redheaded stepchild. No offense to the redheads out there. But they're treated horribly, like they're lumped in with like drug traffickers and things like that from, all sorts of businesses. I mean, the gun industry is locked out of, Shopify. Last summer, the CEO of Shopify shut down the gun dealers. About a month or so ago, Salesforce just fired the gun world from their platform. So these aren't, and if you look at the terms of service from so many of the social media platforms, they don't allow the sale of weapons. You can't sell weapons on eBay. I mean, you can't use Venmo, Square, PayPal. All these guys also prohibit gun dealers from using their networks. And I didn't even realize this till very recently. Even the third-party payment gateways for the crypto world, most of them, because of their terms of service, also ban guns from using their third-party crypto gateways.
Yeah, no, I'll remember. I always come back to the story. It happened within, I think, the first week. I was working for the Denver Post in the Denver Post building, and we were in the operations division, and we were tasked with putting all the digital ads up. And it was the day of the theater shooting, in Aurora, and there was a shotgun ad on the Denver Post page. They had, I think it was it might have been 5280 Armory, or it was one of those local gun shops there, and it was a mad scramble at 6 o'clock in the morning. Everybody texted me, my phone's blowing up. We got to pull that ad down, because it's about optics for these brands. Google, Facebook, especially. I think literally it's about, they don't want their brand associated to an object that they view as dangerous, and so that's why they lump it in with their dangerous products, which marijuana is in the same category, and there's a lot of things that they deem to be fireworks are deemed to be quote unquote dangerous products, and then you're off. And me personally, free marketeer, they have the right to do that. If they don't want that to be a part of their brand on their platform, then I totally get it. I think what the reaction should be, not legislation to force them to let us advertise or set up a page for our gun shop. I think what it should be about just creating alternatives. I mean, there's all kinds of alternatives, and I'm not speaking necessarily for weapons, but I mean, Reddit and Snapchat are two very, I would say, liberal in their policies on what they allow, how they allow you to execute using non-traditional voice and not the corporate voice with people, on their exchanges, and they have scale. Both of them have massive scale from an ad standpoint, and also capabilities that Google and Facebook don't have. So again, I come back to the product mix. It's about, what's your product? What are the guidelines? What hoops are we willing to jump through? I mean, even for cryptocurrencies, I mean, you have to get literally written permission from Facebook, but you can do it. I've run through the process with people. It's not that hard.
I'm still waiting on it.
Yeah,
so,
I mean, I'm lucky. I have a lot of support contacts where I can literally call somebody up and say, hey, case number XYZ, can you go please, kind of have somebody take a look at this? I think if you're just submitting the online form online, you're gonna run into those problems for sure. And that's again, why we start the service.
So we did I don't know if you saw, but we actually we're doing an annual conference in Salt Lake. That's a combination of prepping, guns, and crypto, called Off Chain. And we did our first one in March. It was on March 1st this year, and we wanted to advertise on Facebook for it. And it was just a conference, and crypto was part of it. It was marketed as technology meets preparedness, and we put in for that. We put in for it in like January with Facebook and never got a response. And I'm like, hopefully they'll give us the go-to and the go-ahead for the next conference. So, it's interesting because you're overlapping into two spaces that I'm kind of overlapping, and that's both the gun world and the crypto world, because we're bridging that void. So what things would you say, how could you help us? How could you help us with our crypto project, and how could you help us with guns?
Well, certainly getting your ads approved, being approved. I mean, there are a couple very hard guidelines that both Amazon or Google and Facebook are just fully prohibited. So any ICO on both of them is completely prohibited. Any binary trading, completely prohibited. But a conference, they even say specifically in their guidelines that related products, and I've run blogs on cryptocurrency and run ads on those blogs under this policy, is that any kind of related product is allowed. Just can't specifically, be an ICO, definitely, and binary options they deem as too risky and don't allow those. There's a couple other ones too, but those are the two big ones. So you should, I mean, if you can get eyeballs on it, you'll get approved. I think it's a fairly lax policy, but what I would do is want to put together a product mix that works for both of those. The gun thing on Google and Facebook is just, it's kind of the point, and the only thing that Google allows, and that Facebook will take a different stance on this, but Google does allow the selling and advertising of safety devices. So chamber blocks, trigger guards, gun locks, gun safes, those kinds of things are completely allowed. They're specifically enumerated in their allowed policy. So what I've always done is you craft an execution around what those guidelines are. And again, I come back to, I respect the guidelines. I respect their, they don't want to have gun imagery on their website next to the Google logo. I get that. Fine. That's, I may not agree with it, but I understand that they have a stance that they want to take. So what I do is I don't want to say, so I'll never break their guidelines. I will never put up a gun image. I will never have a marijuana leaf on any of the ads or landing pages because I don't want to get the account shut down. You know, that's it. But there's ways to communicate. There's ways to communicate what you're selling and what you actually want people to do. So a lot of times gun stores, they want people to come into their store. So what I would do is, hey guys, buy a bunch of gun locks. What are they, $2? And we can offer an online ad to come in, give us your, sign up for our newsletter, and we'll give you a free gun lock, or a safe at a dramatically reduced price. And then we can run an ad for that. That's going to achieve your actual goal, right, of getting people into the store and letting people know that you're in business. So again, you got to be really creative with the execution, the language that you use, understanding that it's not just about the ad itself. It's about what's behind that ad if and when somebody clicks on it. And also curating that content in a way that A, gets your point across, B, achieves your goals of what you want that user to do when they get to that splash page or whatever we set up for you. And then you're letting people know that you're in business. Ultimately, when they see that ad, they know that there's I didn't know there's a gun shop down on Main Street, or whatever. So yeah, I think that you got to be creative, and then the product mix. I mean, depends on your products, but I personally am a Reddit evangelist. I spend a lot of my personal time on Reddit. It's one of the few apps that I allow to send me notifications because it's smart and curated, and the content's just better than a lot of the other social, quote unquote, social platforms. We look at it more of a news platform than a social platform in a lot of ways. So running their ads, certainly it helps. It gives an outlet for scale. You can't rely on two content providers. You can't just rely. Google's massive, obviously running on Google's a must, and Facebook is super personal. You're able to get personal with people on Facebook and create, it sounds cheesy, but create lasting relationships with people digitally. And then, but Reddit is certainly another option. Snapchat, we've geo-fenced areas in Snapchat where you can literally set a fence around a specific area. If somebody walks into that area, they're on Snapchat, they can see your filter. We set up filters where somebody in like a James Bond pose with a gun in their hand, and all they had to do was point their phone in a way that it looked like they were holding the gun next to the gun shop. We've done all kinds of creative executions, and I think it definitely depends on the product and what your goals are, and what investment you're willing to put into creating an online marketplace that's going to work for those exchanges.
So you mentioned something that was kind of important, like the curated content and things like where do people go, once there's that
Yep.
ad is approved. Do you help your clients with, say, like landing pages and click funnels and all that kind of stuff as well?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And that's kind of what I mean. And if you have $500 to advertise in a month, then probably you should focus on other areas to get that to a point where you're looking at an investment that you can set up something that's going to be impactful for that customer when they get there. It's going to cost more money for these Vice products, quote unquote alternative products, to be advertised than for a car dealership. There's just less inventory available. Just the bottom line, demand, supply and demand conversation. So knowing that when you do capture that user and you do get them to either click on your ad or get to your page, you want to make sure that it's engaging. You want to make sure that it's just not, a lot of times it's just a crappy splash page, and yeah, I had a dude who knew HTML on Craigslist, and he wrote me a page. I mean, I think a lot of times it's more about creating an experience for that user that they want to create, that they want to reach out to you and either sign up for your newsletter, follow you on Facebook, follow you on Instagram, whatever. They want to create a relationship with you once they get to that page. And yeah, certainly we provide those services. We have full scope digital development, and that includes certainly click funneling, conversion optimization, A/B testing, product imagery, you name it, we do it.
Barry, where can people find out more about you and what you do?
ViceGeek.com. So ViceGeek.com.
Barry, it's been nice catching up, and I do appreciate you coming on the show today.
Same here, Rob. It was great talking to you. I wish you all the best of luck, and and I hope people definitely reach out to you and myself to help them grow their businesses.
Thank you so much. You have a great day, sir.
Thank you for listening to the Rob McNealy program. Make sure you check us out on the web at robmcnealy.com and subscribe to our podcast at YouTube, iTunes, and on the Google Play Store.